Hey, I'm TheBruSho, and this is TheBruSho, and it's spooky season, my favorite time of the year. In fact, my birthday is the day before Halloween, so it's always had a special spot in my heart. The holiday is filled with monsters, witches, and ghouls, and while obviously none of that's real, it's still fun to get into the spirit. And what better way than to brew up an extra spooky beer to celebrate my birthday and Halloween? So my idea was to make a witch's brew inspired black IPA, but not just a regular IPA, a double IPA. Something that looks one way, but tastes completely different. It's got a bit of mystery to it. On the outside, it's a deep, dark black, much like a stout or porter, but when you get close enough, you're hit with those strong, piney citrus aromas. And the taste is up front slightly roasty, then immediately followed by an intense hop flavor and bitterness. And in the end, hitting at almost 9%, this is one potent potion to make sure your Halloween bash is a fun one. Being a big fan of IPAs, I always wanted to make a black IPA for my birthday, and finally I got around to it in a big way. I really found this to be one of the greatest beers I've made in a long time. It hits all the right notes for the style, and I think you'll enjoy it too. So with that, let's conjure up this great recipe, and I'll show you how to make it. For this recipe, we're making a 5-gallon batch using the brew in a bag method. As always, I have the recipe and products I used in the description. Also, I wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to Northern Brewer, which supplied all the ingredients used in this video. They have a huge array of supplies as well as equipment, so be sure to check them out if you're in the mood to brew this batch up. To start, I heat up 6 gallons of distilled water to about 156 degrees. To that water, I'm adding in some water adjustments to improve the flavor, and here's the water profile I'm aiming for. I'm going for a somewhat typical IPA recipe water profile that's higher in sulfates to accentuate that sharp hop bitterness and crispness. Once it's heated up, I add in the grain bag and then the grains. For that, I'm using 77% Maris Otter for a good bready backbone to the beer. Any good pale malt would work. 10% Munich malt for some added complexity and depth. And for that deep color I desire, I have 4% Carafa III Dehusked and 2% Roasted Barley. They're both going to add the color, but the Carafa III is dehusked, which means that it will only add color and minimal roasted flavor notes, whereas the Roasted Barley will add both color and a touch of burnt roasted flavor, much like any good witch's brew would have. The remaining 7% will be corn sugar or dextrose to boost the alcohol and help dry this out. I plan to mash at about 148 degrees for 45 minutes to get as much fermentable sugars as I can and reach a higher alcohol percentage. Just add the grains in and mix, only turning on the heat if the temp drops too much. After 45 minutes, I pull the grains, and with the grain bag resting on top of a wire rack, I then sparge or rinse the grains with 1.5 gallons of warm water. This will help rinse those sugars and raise the total volume up to my desired pre-boil level. Then I bring the wort to a boil for 45 minutes.
Double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble.
At the top of the 45 minutes, I add the first hop in this double IPA, 2 ounces of Magnum, for a big hop bitterness punch. Then at the 15-minute mark, it's time to add the special ingredient of the day. To really bring even more bitterness to this brew, I'm using the potent powers of hop extract. This Cascade CO2 extracted goo will not only give bitterness, it will also add some much needed depth to the hop canvas. Cascade is one of my all-time favorite hops, and a classic that goes great in any IPA. I found that heating some water up and dipping the syringe in helps loosen up the extract, so it can easily squirt into the kettle. Next on the hop schedule, at 10 minutes left, I'll reinforce the Cascade with more Cascade, this time in hop pellet form, a 1/2 ounce. In the last few minutes of the boil, I add in the sugar to dissolve, about 1 pound for this recipe. Lastly, at the end of the 45 minutes, I turn off the boil and cool down to 170 degrees Fahrenheit, at which point I add in the final hop, a 1/2 ounce of Cyro Citra. This will add those citrus notes and play nicely with the Cascade, and adding it in the whirlpool will extract mainly hop aroma and flavor, and not as much bitterness, because I'm pretty sure we got that covered. In the end, this will have about 85 IBUs. After whirlpooling for about 10 minutes, I cool it down and transfer into a fermenter. I also take an original gravity reading and get 1.074. And for that, I'll need a strong yeast. I'm using White Labs WLP 090, also known as San Diego Super Yeast. a common yeast strain for double IPAs, and should have no problems taking care of this brew. I made a starter the night before to build up the yeast count to avoid off flavors, and then pitch it in. I'll ferment this around 67 degrees for 1 week. But before the week's over, after about 4 days of fermentation, I decided to dry hop this. I mean, this is a double IPA after all. So I dropped in a ½ ounce each of Cascade and Cyro Citra hops and quickly closed back up the fermenter until it was done. At the end of the week, I took a final gravity reading, which was at 1.009, which means this comes in at about 8.5% ABV. We officially
Have beer.
So without any delay, I transferred into the keg and set the pressure. I was extremely excited to start trying this one. Okay, so this is going to sound really weird, but I know I brewed 5 gallons of beer, but when I went to check on the keg, there only seems to be like a gallon left. I checked all the connections and everything seems to be working fine, but I'm just a little confused. I'm not really sure where things could have gone wrong. I mean, I'm not one to really believe in ghosts and ghouls, but I don't know, maybe it's just the season, but it feels like something supernatural is going on. I saw this on a TV show once. Let's see if we hear anything. Did you hear that?
Not bad, bro. Needs more hops.
Okay, clearly something's going on. So I'm going to set up some cameras, and I'm going to watch from over here on my computer. And we'll see if we can catch something in the act. Okay, here we go. The cameras are set, and now we just wait. Whoa, what was that? What is that? Is that real? Okay, I'm gonna check this out. Oh my god, I see it. It's just like drinking my beer? Oh sh! Oh god! Oh shit! Oh god! Oh god! Oh my god! I'm so scared. I'm so scared. It was right here. Where'd it go? Come on, work. Come on. Oh, Willow, you scared the shit.